video, we're going to be learning the basics of 2D sketch constraining. So you all should have up the sketch from Chris's previous video about setting up and making shapes, but if you don't already have that up on your screen, you can pause the video right here and try and copy down the dimensions that I've have set up on the screen, or you can rewatch Chris's video to get yourself set up. So basically, a constraint is something that helps hold parts of your sketch in place, or something that helps you define the position of certain lines relative to other lines in your sketch. And overall, constraints are used to add rigidity and structure to the 2D sketch that you're making. So Chris actually already taught you about one kind of constraint, that's the distancing constraint, and it's been used here to set lengths for all of these lines and set angles and set diameters. And what this does is it means that you can't, if I drag this, it'll drag the whole shape. It won't change the size of anything here. So the kind of constraints that we're going to be learning about today are a level up from the distancing constraint, in that they don't just tell you distance, they can do things like make lines parallel to each other, or make things perpendicular, or tangent, or collinear, things like that, so that you can set up your shapes the way you want. So the tools we're going to be working with today lie in the Constrain section of Inventor. The nice thing about Inventor is that when you hover over a button, it gives you a nice little diagram and description of what the constraint does. So I'm going to be showing you a few constraints today, but I suggest that you, on your own time, explore the rest of them using this nice feature. You can read a little bit about how they work, and hopefully you can kind of just figure it out by trying it a few times and reading the descriptions they have here. Okay, so let's get CADing. Today we're going to be turning Chris's assortment of shapes into a car. And the way I want to do that first is by putting this trapezoid that we've made on top of this rectangle. So the constraint that I'm going to be using to do that is, first I'm going to do the collinear constraint and just drag this one on top of that. And I just click one line, click the other line, and then I click escape to get rid of it. And then the next thing that I'm going to be doing to make sure this is lined up in the correct place is I'm going to do a coincident constraint. So the coincident constraint puts a point on a line or lines up 2 points and things like that. So what I'm going to do is actually, you'll see it, I'm scrolling. At the bottom of this trapezoid, there's a green dot. That's the midpoint of the trapezoid's bottom. And then I'm going to be finding the midpoint of the rectangle, which is right there. Boom, and now they are constrained. And it's perfectly in the middle. I didn't have to worry about doing any math to figure out where it goes, and that's really great. So as you can see, that before that trapezoid was blue, that meant it was unconstrained, it was floating around. Now it is black, which means that it is set in stone, we've told it where to go, and it's going to stay there. So now let's do something about this wheel, this circle that will become a wheel. So first thing we want to do is pop it on the line. So let's do a coincident constraint on there, and we can use Chris's distancing tool to set the distance from the side. Let's say maybe 1, way too big, 0.5, much better. Okay, that's even too much, I'm being picky. Sure, that's fine. So 0.25, we've put our circle there. And then what I want to do is I want to make a separate circle, bigger one, to make it more like a tire. And I'm going to use what's now called the concentric constraint. And I'm going to make these two circles have the same center. And now they're both constrained together. So that was very fast. You can go through that again and pause through it if you want to slow down and see how each of those work. But now what I want to do is make a copy of this wheel, and I could just redo the whole process, but I don't want to. So you'll notice in the Modify panel there's a copy button. What you can do is just select everything you want to copy, click this one, click the base point. The base point is kind of where you're anchoring it, here, and I'm just going to plop this over here, which just nicely copies it, and I'm done. And then we can copy the same dimensioning, 0.25. And I will also do another coincident. Actually, I can do something else that's not a coincident constraint, because we want these wheels to always lie on the same line. So what I can do is actually use a horizontal constraint. So basically the horizontal constraint will take two things and put them perfectly along a horizontal line. So we have our wheels, we have our little bit at the top, and I want to end by making a little window. It's going to look kind of wacky. I think this whole thing looks kind of strange, honestly, but I'm actually making a teardrop window, and that's because, as you'll see later on in the course, we use teardrop holes a lot for 3D printing things. And you can get bonus points if you think about why that might be. It's something about the way that the 3D printer prints things. But yeah, I'm going to show you how to do that using constraints quickly right now. So we start off by making a circle. I'll make my circle 0.5 in diameter. And then what we need to do is make a line, two lines that are going to be the points on our teardrop. So now what we can do is use something called the tangent constraint. Make this tangent to the circle and make this one tangent to the circle. And then what we're also going to do is use the perpendicular constraint to make this line perpendicular to that line. We have all this excess ugliness, this line here, blah, blah, blah. That's really gross. So what we can do now is use what's called the trim tool. And the trim tool basically just figures out which bits are excess, extending beyond what you've made, not really intersecting anything, and it will help you cut them off. I'm just going to cut off that little inside bit. So as you saw there, we very quickly made a nice teardrop shape. So now what we want to do is we want to fit it inside here. And we can do a vertical constraint with this and this midpoint, but I placed it in a nice location before. And then we're going to end off by using a rotate tool, which is just below the copy tool. The way you use the rotate tool is we're going to click everything we want to rotate. We're going to choose the center point. I guess it wants me to remove the constraints. And then I'm going to rotate it approximately sideways. And then we're going to finish it off, making it perfectly sideways using our favorite horizontal constraint. And not sure why this still isn't, oh, it removed the vertical constraint. Well, we will move it back. And we'll distance it. And here we go. You finished your first sketch of a car.